Well, good day, and welcome to the PSBTA's webinar regarding FirstNet and its unique benefits to emergency medical services. A few notes up front. First, everyone that's listening to this webinar today has been automatically muted to reduce background noise. There will be both an email and a QR code at the end of the session on the last slide so that you can download the slides, or if you want to email any questions into the PSBTA team, we'd be happy to receive those and of course follow up on those. I am fortunate today to have with me two distinguished chiefs that have made an incredible difference in the profession in EMS and the technology side of EMS. And I'm looking forward to introducing both of those. I'm your host today. My name is Jeff Johnson. I am the Chief Emeritus for the Western Fire Chiefs and been very active on FirstNet issues since day one of the legislation and followed it all the way through from being an active board member all the way to continuing to serve public safety. My guests today are first Chief Fred Scalera. Chief Scalera is a retired chief from Nutley, New Jersey, and Fred not only created, but ran and still represents the response operations group at FirstNet. And Fred has an extensive background in public safety, EMS, and the fire service, frankly, on all sides. Fred has also been in law enforcement and hazardous materials. He's really kind of a Leatherman tool of public safety responders, and I'll let Fred introduce himself in a minute. And then we're fortunate to have join us today is Chief Brent VanKeulen. Brent spent a good chunk of his career as the chief of EMS for Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, and today is an assistant chief for a department in the Seattle area. And Chief VanKeulen has distinguished himself as being one of the most digitally capable people out there. So with that, Fred, would you take a couple minutes to introduce yourself, and then we'll turn it over to Chief VanKeulen.
Sure. Thank you, Chief. So my name is Fred Scalera, and I'm director of the FirstNet Response Operations Group. We created as soon as the project got started. It's been a great success. Some of my background is I retired as a chief out of Nutley, New Jersey. I went over to the Sheriff's Department, director of the Sheriff's Department, Essex County, New Jersey, which was responsible for the most dangerous 3 miles in America. I've also been the chairman of Homeland Security, active legislature in the state government here, and responded to Sandy's, hurricanes, Katrinas, all those type of things, which did help us work in the adoption of FirstNet with our messaging and the way we could do things. And we're going to talk about differences of how we can respond to storms and recover network much faster and better than anything occurred during the Sandys and the Katrinas and life that I lived through and responded to throughout my career. So thank you, Chief.
Well, thank you, Fred. And just to recognize, in the early days, pre-FirstNet, you were the leading visionary on mobile operations, cows, colts, cell on trailers. And matter of fact, that's where you and I first met, as I was active in leading Oregon's wireless initiatives, and you were doing the same on the East Coast. And we both ended up with, at the time, a BTOP grant. And you had the vision. And I just want to thank you for your service and your vision there. Chief VanKeulen, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Thanks, Chief Johnson, and welcome everybody who's joining us. My name is Brent VanKeulen, and I started, as Chief Johnson said, at Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, where he was the fire chief, and had the good fortune to run the EMS system there that included ambulance transport in portions of our service area. And then because we were so committed to data and innovation, I was also lucky enough to lead a project where we developed a decision support tool that worked out in the field to enhance EMS delivery. Since then, I've consulted in connection designs in rural counties in Colorado. I have assisted in a couple of Oregon counties that are maybe the least populated counties in the US. And now I currently serve as the Deputy Chief of the Emergency Services at Central Pierce Fire and Rescue. We're We serve an urban, suburban, and frontier area west of Mount Rainier in the Seattle area of Washington, where we see about 38,000 patients a year and have 16 ambulances run around and whole blood and all sorts of forward-leaning technologies in EMS delivery.
Thanks, Brent. You know, one of the things that's unique about your service area is, is you have some of the most complex and dense urban and suburban area, and probably also some big elk herds. And that's really where it gets difficult. Wireless providers have done a good job historically in providing terrestrial macro level coverage in urban areas where it's profitable for them. The real trick here is how do we extend our coverage into these suburban and frontier areas in a way that creates tenacious connectivity? And, some of the area you reflected on in Lake County, Oregon, it's really rural. And where there's a lot of jobs where the more rural you get, the less complicated it gets. In rural America, that just means you're the sole paramedic in the back of an ambulance with a long, long, long run to a hospital that is likely not a trauma hospital. And that creates some unique challenges for us. And I'm looking forward to talking about that today. So maybe what we do, Fred, let's kick off. Where is EMS headed in a digital context?
So, and if you could roll the slide, Loredana. So FirstNet really came about in multiple, yeah, that's good. That's a good one there. Multiple different ways, right? So let's talk about what we have to do to the network to get to where the chief talked about, right? So right now we have now advanced to 2.97 square miles, 250 square miles more than any other network. There's no throttling in speeds. We have physical separated cores. We have 24/7 priority and preemption to make sure you're going to get through that network selected on band 14. And we prioritize you over all of our network, no matter where you are in the country. And it's really one of a kind experience for public safety. So when we went to use Katrina is one of my great examples. We got down there and we went down to Bill Camp, New Jersey, and built LMR stuff with us and trying to put antennas up and where we can get coverage and portable radios. And I talk about that today. What would happen if we had better connectivity? I'm a 9/11 responder, and I can tell you that we had no communications from Jersey to New York, no matter what was going on. Can you imagine if what you're going to see with some of our equipment and we built with the ROG team or with FirstNet AT&T to go out now and stand up that network right away and give you that recovery? Those are all some of the most important things as FirstNet's gone along. And Loredana, if you can roll the next slide. So we're in all 50 states, the territories, District of Columbia. This is a 24/7 operation, planned events, unplanned emergencies, small and single jurisdictions, 150 dedicated employees, and then network disaster recovery construction reserves, which is hundreds or more across the country that surge in that are also from AT&T. And if you're looking at the one unit, and the chief was there when I designed these, that's one of the units for what we built is the JerseyNet project as the early builder project, but our generators and all there. Those are the things that truly are starting to make the change. And you can go to the next slide, Loredana. So there's emergency requests, there's urgent and planned event requests. And all of this, in all the states is a 14-hour response. And that is a contractual recovery time, right? So it's not like we don't have to meet, we get fined if we don't meet those contractual times. And then negotiated in Kansas City was a 10-hour response, and in California, say to California 7 during the opt-in. But all this, and I like to say this, all of you for planned events, emergencies, whatever it is, it's all free. There is never a charge, whether you're doing it, standing it up for a national security event, a town event where you're concerned there might be a problem. It is all done free, 24/7, and we support public safety full time.
And Chief, let me just double down on that. I mean, I want to make sure we're clear about that. If I am a FirstNet agency account and we have an emergency going on anywhere in the United States, I can contact FirstNet through their designated portal. I can request mobile coverage, and it comes to me within the timelines you've described, and there's no charge, and it stays there as long as I need it as the incident commander. Is that it?
That's correct. And we've left SAC Colts in place after hurricanes and storms 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. We do not leave that area until it is made whole and stable again.
And how does that actually work, Chief? Like, there's a lot of the West, there's nothing there. There's certainly no fiber there. There's no cable you can hook on. Are you using satellite?
Yeah, so we're using multiple levels of satellite. So, we've been using terrestrial satellite, the new, the standard satellite, and we've also adopted the low Earth orbit satellites so that we get more capacity and coverage. And that's everything from our mini CRDs, which are a network in a box, to our CRDs, they're like a mini cell site, to the SATCOLT that you see here on the screen, right? And these SATCOLTs can do 3 to 5 miles of coverage and bring that stability up. But as we're going over to new satellites and switching our systems over, they'll be faster, they'll be better, there'll be more capacity. So this isn't a one and done. I love to say that to you. We are advancing this equipment every day, every month, every year to make sure it's the best of what public safety needs and what they get.
And Chief, one of the distinguishing factors at FirstNet is we have ruthless priority and preemption built into the network. And for public safety, essentially the commuter lane is always open for us in a digital context. And that actually works and carries over all that engineered technology built for public safety. That still works when you bring in a colt or a cow and we're backhauling via satellite. Is that true?
Oh, that is very true, Chief. We work very hard to make sure that everything and all the coverage and the capacity that's needed is able to be supplied when and where it's needed. And it can be a small rural town to a major city, depending what's going on. And we did one up in, I think it was the state of Washington, and it was a 15-member subscriber paid agency that had no coverage. They called, and we actually went out and brought that agency the coverage they needed, and they actually sent us a personal thank you stating they never thought anybody but a big city would ever get that equipment.
And Chief, one last thing, you mentioned throttling. Like, for some people that don't live and breathe the technical world all day long, and I'm just going to stick with my empty commuter lane on a freeway analogy for a minute. Throttling is when the freeway is at capacity and it's stop and go traffic. And throttling is essentially a ramp meter. Those lights they have at the end of the on ramp. It's the network is saying we're full, and I'm either kicking you off or not letting you on. That's throttling, and that is a common practice with some carriers, but it is forbidden with the FirstNet. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct. And it's not just what we want to do, it's contractually obligated in the contract that AT&T had bid on and is got one for 25 years. And that is a guarantee as a part of the contract that there is no throttling, no delay on speeds, no anything for anybody from public safety on this network.
Thank you for filling me in on that. Please proceed.
So I think we should go over to some of the benefits of FirstNet, and I'll turn over to Brent, Chief, if you want to start that one off.
Yes, sir. Okay, so Brent, at the front end here, you are the street level chief officer nowadays, dealing with these kind of issues on on as they come in basis. What are you seeing as important for other responders? Like, when you think about a digital network and you think about FirstNet, what's important to you, and what are the functions and capabilities that you just got to have?
Yeah, so, you know, we functioned with voice for many, many years. And I think what's unique about EMS versus law enforcement or fire suppression side of the business is the continuity of care. So all of our EMTs and paramedics are actually functioning under a physician's uh, orders. So we're functioning under a physician's license. So we are an extension of the healthcare system out into the neighborhoods and out into the rural areas. And to maintain that continuity of care and to maintain key performance indicators in the amount of time, as an example, from when someone dials 911 and is having a heart attack, for us to get them to the emergency department, to put in a stent or a trauma system entry. All of that communication is enhanced with data. So data and consistent connectivity across the entire service area is critical to any sorts of meaningful advancements in the technological space. As an example, every one of our rigs has a 12-lead capable EKG. This is common and a part of the standard of care across the US. That EKG reading gets transmitted to the hospital so that they can activate the cath labs in advance of our arrival, and that literally saves lives.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I had a friend, Marla, who just actually had a stroke in the last couple of weeks. And it was that very thing you just described. It was the first responder agency. It was their intervention. It was recognition of the problem. It was activation of the cath lab. It was sending a 12-lead EKG, which helped the doctor, the receiving docs in the ER, be ready to deal with it. That she has 100% recovery, and it's that intervention to cath time that's so critical. And I love the fact we can move EKGs over this network. And this is an area where we couldn't afford to be throttled. Fred, to your point, we can't afford to have that communication throttled because it does mean lives. And what other things are going on, Chief? Are people starting to connect the ER doc to the back of the ambulance? Are people having that kind of functionality?
Yeah, so there's products like Pulsara and others that are video telemetry capable. And there's a move, within the healthcare space in and of itself. I mean, 10 years ago, none of the three of us on this call could have a video conference with our immediate care doctor. And that concept is there's a shortage of providers and there's different tiers of providers. And it's the idea of getting the right practitioner with the right information in front of the right patient. And the only way to do that is with telemetry. You can't drive a doctor all around, but you can certainly get them in front of the patient via a video conference. And then in addition to extending the healthcare and where we're headed in the future, is there are tools around medical diagnosis in the artificial intelligence arms race that we're in right now. And the trick here is there's no offline compute capability that is in a device at the patient side out in the community that can process that sort of data. So again, it's absolutely critical to have the connection back to the compute power to be able to assist in quality decision making of the practitioners.
That's an excellent point. It is a fascinating time. Like there was a day when police officers, firefighters, and EMTs, when the map books were actually physically a thing, and like it was a bound 3-ring binder, and depending on how big your first due area, sometimes it was 2, 3, or 4 of them. But I remember having the impression that there was a day when the map books came out of our response vehicles. That was a day when digital connectivity was not a choice, it was a must-have, because getting from point A to point B required digital connectivity. And some of the functionality you're talking about could greatly affect patient outcomes and the ability to, in real time, see satellite images of wildfires. And I could go on. I think everyone on the call gets it. We are already at a place that in most agencies, in terms of a population context, we just have to have connectivity. And what are you seeing? Like, do you expect connectivity 100% of the time to do your job? 75% of the time, some of it can be cached. I mean, what goes through your mind when we think about connectivity?
The firefighters and EMS providers are the type of group that gives it one chance. And if it doesn't work, then they say this sucks, and then they don't try to use it again. So the reliability is critical, and not only when we're running kind of the standard calls or in the rural environment, which is difficult to get to due to some of the factors that you described around, the normal cell companies systems that they build around, profitability. But even more importantly, like in my service area right now, I happen to be sitting in the path of a volcano that could rip through the community. And we have one of the top 10 largest fairs in the nation. So when you have events like that and the commercial systems are overburdened, then having the response operations group like Chief discussed, and when a lahar rips through, those sorts of things become critical to do our day-to-day work, even in those sorts of disaster zones.
And I'm guessing that, just going old school on you here, our paramedics used to carry InfraMed pocket guides to do dosages. And, these are areas you don't want to make mistakes on. Are people still using those books, or have these kind of tools gone digital also?
Those tools have gone digital. There are, we probably have 12 checklists for 12 complicated procedures. So from the day of the flip chart in the days of when I very first became a paramedic, compared to the medications and the procedures that they perform today, it's just increased. Like I mentioned earlier, we carry whole blood. We have I wouldn't even be able to function in the field right now with the number of medications that they're carrying and how complex the delivery of emergency medicine has become. It's more than the brain can hold, and it's the more than you can stick in a flip book. So it becomes absolutely critical to have that information in a digital format. And Chief Johnson, not only in a digital format, but in a way where the compute is smart. So listening to the call, analyzing what's being said, interpreting the information from the provider, like in the instance of your friend that had the stroke, which I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah.
The system needs to be adaptive when the provider puts information in, and then start to suggest various types of medications. It needs to interpret vital signs. All of that stuff is reliant on connectivity.
So,
That
Chief,
is fascinating to me. Yeah, please.
Chiefs, can you bring up the next slide, Laura Donna, the one enhancing communications? So I think we should cover a couple things. So ROG is response
Yeah, let's
operation.
do it.
Oh, yeah.
Not that one.
Nope. There. No,
Next one.
basically, you might not have it in the next one. It's slide 8, enhancing communications. But anyhow, let's talk about a couple different things, right? So what are the benefits? What is enhancing your communications? So a couple different things. ROG is response operations group, right? When we talk about SATCOLs, it's satellites on light trucks. There's cows. There's all different things which are cell on wheels. We have drones that do LTE in the air, right? That LTE is our long-term evolution of technology, right? All those different things. But if you're enhancing the communications, we have to worry about what everybody needs, including paramedics and EMTs. How do we keep the lines open? How do we get you that communications? It's all built different ways. And I'll talk about a few things, and then Brent, I'm sure, will jump back in. But it's not only about the network, it's the devices. It's from, push to talk, enhanced push to talk over your cell phone. It's about having all the details in the palm of your hand. It's about having network on your vehicles, cradle points, and other types of routers that get installed. And now, if you're talking rural areas, we have only ones that offer what's called high power user end equipment, HPUE. So that'll extend range, and I think Brett will come back and jump on this. But where your normal router goes on this router can extend you up to 13 miles. So you might be in a more rural area, and it's going to kick you up to a site 13 miles away and give you that coverage. So it's not just, and this is not a one and done. This is complete advancement. We're going into our 6th year, more years to go, but new technologies continuous rolling out. As I said, we have CRDs, compact rapid deployables, and all this stuff is on our website, and you're going to get a document after this also from from the PBSTA. Mini CRDs, which are two suitcases, basically black cases that you can carry the network anyplace. And I love using as an example. We had the fiber cut under the undersea cable broke in northern Alaska. In about 12 hours, we had this box on the roof of a public safety building, covered a half a mile around the building, and their 911 center and everything was live over using these two boxes with FirstNet. So we are developing these new solutions, in-building solutions, mobile solutions, and how do we work with you in the future with EMS technology? And maybe I'll turn it back over to Brett, who's done some of the work with this technology and the equipment.
Yeah, Fred, let's just touch on that for a minute, though. Let's talk
Sure.
about the Alaska use case. Because I remember when that happened, like we had an undersea fiber cut. The ROG team sent people there immediately, and you deployed, a FirstNet device on the roof of the police station, if I remember right. And
Correct.
FirstNet was back in business like that. Everyone
Correct.
else was down. Now, the interesting thing is, if that police department would have chosen to purchase on their own a mini, then they could have literally got it out of the storage cabinet, put it on their roof, and been in business. So it isn't just that FirstNet has it and will bring it to you. Yes, that's all true. But our typical chief officer, our typical department, they can also buy these things that are FirstNet ready and light them up on their own. Could you describe that a bit? The COAM, I think they're called.
Sure, sure, Chief. So we have what's called customer owned and managed equipment, and we're one of the only ones that truly offer that from end to end. We have almost 700 agencies across the country that own their own CRDs, compact rapid deployable, and mini CRD, which is the compact rapid deployable in a box. Over 700 of these are out there. I will tell you, wildfire agencies, EMS, a lot of EMS agencies have them. We have some states that have built the fleet, located them all over the state. So you self-deploy it, stand it up when you need it, where it needs to go. And when you go out, and we've had a department from Iowa send it to Utah when they went there, and they let us know where it's at. We reconfigure even 911, and that's a good point. Let me bring one other point about 911. Very important here. All of our equipment, and it's our equipment, right? We locked out for FirstNet. You have to be on band 14. You have to have it on your device. You have it to go there. But any citizen during a state of emergency can call 911 over our mini CRD, our CRD, our SAC calls. We're the only ones that bring that, not only supporting public safety, but allowing emergency. They can't call their grandparents, their grandmothers, or whatever, but they can all call 911. So not only are we
Regardless of
advancing,
carrier. No
regardless of
matter what
carrier,
carrier
Chief.
they have, if they hit a FirstNet piece of equipment, they can call 911.
That's correct. And I think that's another big piece. So it's not only supporting public safety communications, it's those people that are in need that where we stand things up. So public safety is guaranteed communications, and the citizens are guaranteed 911 communications.
Oh, that's just fabulous. Chief VanKeulen, what does the term tenacious connectivity mean to you?
Well, sitting in a current lahar of Mount Rainier, it's a lot of what Chief Scalera just described. And um, we always have this tension about investing in legacy technology or investing in future proofing where we're headed. And one of the big challenges that we have, absent the deployables and the ability to stand the network back up for the community to access 911, is in the scenario that we prepare for. It is the disaster we prepare for. So wildfires, earthquakes, volcanoes erupting, the ability to stand the system back up, and critically to be able to have the community dial 911. We can talk to ourselves on our land mobile radio system, but the community
Right.
cannot access that system and cannot get to us.
And Chief, I
So,
think what
I think, go ahead, Fred, please.
yeah, I think we're missing one thing that, and we're talking about it. Let's talk about communications is LTE and LMR together, right? That land mobile radio and LTE. So the great
Yeah.
thing is there are vendors now that have devices that do LT and LMR. So if your tower's down, it'll come back in over LTE, or if you're in an area where there's no LTE or LMR, it'll connect to either. But I think that's the next advancement is push to talk. And you can hear, for an example, I talk to chiefs all the time. They love this. You can tie your cell phone with FirstNet push to talk on it to your radio network, and you could be in Oregon, and you could be at a conference in South Carolina, and you could hear and talk to your department from wherever you are in the country. So that chief, the commanding officers, and you can create private talk groups. But LTE LMR is the future moving forward, is that LTE push to talking, tying that together to give you the go any place, anywhere. Your radio, you're never out of your radio system once you're tied into the LTE piece.
We call that
Chief,
augmentation. That's what. Go ahead, Chief
no,
Johnson.
no,
Sorry.
please continue. I was just going to ask you that question, so go for that.
Yeah. There sometimes people talk about that there's a battle between LTE and LMR, and there isn't. There's plenty of space, and we have plenty of need on the street. What we need is an augmentation and an integration of the two systems, just as Chief Scalera described. And within our county, we have ES check and uh-oh.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah,
Can
you
still
warbled
hear me?
out there for a second. There, now we got you. Go
Okay,
ahead.
I'm back. We have Chief Scalera, just as you've described, we have radio over IP, and that's powerful. Once you get that voice on the internet, it can go anywhere. But the thing that really shifts, and this is something I didn't necessarily see coming, I know you and Chief Johnson did, is it shifts where we put the investment. So now we're investing in the cellular system. We have plans to put in 15 cell towers, and we're partnering with the cell company and the tower companies to get FirstNet distributed across the areas because it brings data. That's the missing link with LMRs. We need to have ubiquitous data. I'd say the final frontier, Chief Johnson, when you asked me about tenacious, is solving the in-building issue. And the good thing is that a lot of people like malls, like no kid goes and shops at a mall if their cell phone won't work. So our radio over IP will work inside of malls where our LMR system won't, and vice versa. But we need to be able to really enhance that in-building data connectivity. So, and this is really as a firefighter.
So, Chief Johnson, if I could jump back in to talk
Yeah.
about in building. So, a couple great things here are so that in building is very important. So we report to the FirstNet Authority, and the FirstNet Authority gets funding, and then we get funding back to keep reinvesting. So in building, you can apply for there's called Cell Booster Pros. You can get 6 of them for free. You just tie them in. You can put them in firehouses, school, wherever you think you might need in building. You get 6 per building, and they'll cover 1,500 square feet each, so you can cover a large area, 1 per floor. But they're all free. Just tie them into your internet. They become a mini cell site right in your building, any place, and they are offered from free through FirstNet AT&T with the FirstNet Authority. And on top of that, with the FirstNet Authority, we get reinvestment. And talking with Chief Brent up there, that we are actually building 1,000 more sites this year, all funded and worked on with the FirstNet Authority going out, meeting with customers for us, stating, hey, we need a tower here, we need it there, and they are going to be built. They take more than a year to build, but they're all going to be funded, and that's the next expansion. This project will never go stale. Reinvestment comes every year back into AT&T from the authority to advance this for public safety. The money doesn't go anyplace else except into network and advancement. And that is really the greatest part of this, is we'll never have an old network or a stale network or an out-of-date network.
You chiefs raise excellent issues. In-building issues do, in fact, raise their head, and that happens with LMR or LTE. You can overwalk your coverage if you're not careful, based on building design, especially the modern buildings that are built to resist solar influence, and they're better insulated, et cetera. they tend to repel radio waves. So, it's becoming an issue. And Chief VanKeulen, you raise an excellent question. Going back to the issue of public safety responders, it has to work. They would rather have simple and less capable, but it works every time. I remember in law enforcement when people were talking about moving away from this Ruger Security 6 pistol and going to a semi-automatic. The amount of resistance to go into a semi-automatic was deafening because they didn't know if they could count on a semi-automatic. It just illustrates how reluctant public safety is to move away from something that works every time. And Chief VanKeulen, you raise this issue in such a context, I think I can't leave it alone, which is I think chiefs have to look at coverage differently. I think any police chief, fire chief, or EMS chief would have no trouble seeing the wisdom of taking their money and building a land mobile radio tower for their radio network. That makes all the sense in the world. You know what? It only serves us outbound. But I love where you're thinking, which is no, it's all moving to digital, it's all moving to LTE. If I can invest in a cell tower that also has LMR, now the people that pay their taxes can use that tower to call 911, and I can use it outbound on my response, and it furthers the digital approach to how we transition and how we augment LMR with LTE. I think it's genius. I think more chiefs should be looking at that. I mean, what's the difference if I put my radio equipment on a tower that does both cellular and LMR, and it costs me the same amount of money or no money based on public-private partnerships? I think that is a no-brainer. I do want to come back to just one other issue that I want to push on a little bit, and that's just kind of the future of EMS. Like, if part of what we do is future-proof ourselves, I I often ask EMS chiefs this question. Think of the last 100 EMS calls you went on, and how many of those patients did you transport? And I'll make up a number, but the answer is usually 60%. Okay. Of the 60%, and I want every listener to put this question in their head, of the 60%, how many of them genuinely needed to go to the hospital? And the answer changes to like 15 to 20%, maybe. So what we know is that the EMS system typically is engineered to over transport anybody in question because we don't have, we're extending the physician's authority into the field, and we can't be wrong the other way. Do you see a day, Chief VanKeulen, where digitally the paramedic is the eyes and ears of the supervising physician, and we are more regularly engaging doctors in not only the serious, complicated, AI-driven, doctor-driven analysis, but maybe we don't need to transport this patient? Is that a realistic thing of the future?
Absolutely. Advancements in point of care blood work testing. And Chief Johnson, I feel like it's more of a social change that the tech companies are already know is coming. So my theory has to do with baby boomers had to put their parents in a retirement home. Now, how many baby boomer wants to go in the retirement home? None. They
Yeah,
want to
not
stay at
not
home.
this one.
Exactly. So now if you look at Google and Amazon and Apple, they're doing all in-home monitoring. There's fall on your watch. And you're right about the transport rate, but what's even more fascinating than that is how many people don't even actually call 911 anymore. Our 911 centers are lighting up because a watch called them and told them that somebody fell. So the in-home care and the reliance on in-home medical systems, I think is the tech companies see this coming. They know they're going after the revenue and what people are going to want to do, and that's where I'm really seeing the future in EMS. That's being told, and where we need to watch the system go is watch what Google's doing and Amazon and Apple.
Well, I think you're dead on with that, and it seems all too often we are chasing. Um, we're chasing what tech sees as the best answer and trying to iterate behind it. So to your point, like whether it's OnStar activations or it's my settings on my watch constantly calling 911, it takes time and energy out of the comm center to deal with that. And finding ways to use this technology to improve the situational awareness of the inbound medic and to queue up the the further treatment centers that are going to deal with the patient upon arrival, that's going to make differences in patient outcomes. And I think what we need to do is it all starts with connectivity. It all starts with reliable connectivity, which is in the heart of the baseball swing for FirstNet. I love the fact that FirstNet was designed by public safety, advocated for public safety, and it is governed by public safety. It's actually a board of directors comprised in part of public safety responders. And then to Chief Scalera's point, this constant reinvestment makes the difference in that this network is ever fresh and it's accountable. I just want to wrap up and just ask either of you if you have any last comments before I close out this session. Fred?
No, Chief, we covered a lot of points. You can submit any questions back. We'll be glad to answer that for you. If any other presentations, just reach out through the link that you will be receiving. And I appreciate everybody to join and their time. Thank you.
Chief VanKeulen.
Yeah, Chief Johnson, there was a question that came in about why I was losing connection, and it was a math problem because my phone was trying to take over as the camera and the microphone, so it wasn't bad Wi-Fi or FirstNet. But it brings up a really important point. You know, if you don't have FirstNet coverage in your area, that's okay. You got to get the coverage that you can. But the important distinction here is FirstNet is our network. It's public safety. It's built by public safety people. You know, Chief Scalera and Chief Johnson, you've been boots on the ground since the beginning. These are contractual obligations, and none of the other carriers decided to go down that route. I'm assuming there was a RFP that went out that said who wants to bid and build this system. So this is the one that I advocate for. And if I don't have coverage on a carrier, then I don't buy that SIM card because I need coverage, and that's okay too. So there's always that part of the conversation, but I advocate for our own network and the build out for it, to a lot of what Fred said, because then I get those free emergency systems that come when I have a volcano blow up to the east of me and blow half my community out.
Yeah, excellent point. Well, Chief VanKeulen, Chief Scalera, thank you both for your decades of service. Thank you both for your wisdom and your willing to be on and share your experience and wisdom. To our viewers today, I want to thank you for taking 45 minutes out of your important careers to dedicate to further learning. I want to remind you that we'll be placing up a slide at the end of the program with a QR code. That QR code will get you a copy of these slides, and it's a place you can submit any questions. And lastly, and not least of all, is our network needs to be reauthorized by Congress, even though it does not have any federal money that's used in its operation, maintenance, or construction. This is free of federal money. It still needs to be authorized as public safety's network, and that is due to happen by 2027. You can find the petition and sign the petition on the home page for the Public Safety Broadband Technology Association. It's right there on the landing page. Again, I would like to thank you all for joining us, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.